A new poll has Doug Ford's Progressive Conservative Party with the advantage at the start of the campaign, at least. Nanos research poll commissioned by CTV News and CP24 has the PC party at 36.9% support, followed by the Liberals at 30.4% and New Democrats at 23.7%. The Greens, as you see in this graphic, are sitting at 4.3% support, 100 leader Mike Schreiner. Joining us now to help break down the numbers is Nick Nanos, of course, of Nanos Research. Nick, great to have you on the program this morning as the campaign officially gets underway. These findings here, the significance of the Liberal comeback from 2018 and where the PCs are right now. Let's put that into context as the campaign gets underway.
Well, this is going to be a blockbuster provincial election. The big question is, will he, won't he? Will Doug Ford win another mandate or won't he? Right now, we can see with the Conservatives at around 36.9%, they're lower than what they were in the previous election. I think they're at around 41. But the switch, the trading places politically right now at least, has been between the Liberals and the New Democrats. Back in 2018, the New Democrats had 34%. Now they're down to 24%, while the Liberals in 2018 had a paltry 20. Now they're up 30. But right now, the key thing is that both Ford and Horwath and Schreiner, the leader of the Green Party, are known commodities. The big question is the leader of the Liberal Party, Del Duca. Will he connect with voters? Will he be able to convert that 30% in order to pick up more ridings? In the first part of the campaign, Nick, I predict that Del Duca will be the wild card, and whether people either gather around his banner or desert him.
Well, that's interesting, Nick, because I wanted to pick up on that, because in your polling, you take a look at accessible voters, and around half of voters that you polled suggested they would consider voting Liberal. Just under half would vote NDP, and 44%, almost 45% Progressive Conservative. But then you look at preferred Premier, Doug Ford at around 30%, Andrea Horwath around 23%, and Stephen Del Duca at 17%. So the Liberals have a lot of voters there, but when it comes to who you want as Premier, Del Duca is well back.
Absolutely. And you know from previous elections that leadership is one of the key dimensions that people evaluate and decide on their vote. And think of it this way. The Liberals are at 30. Del Duca's at 17. He's trailing his party. It speaks to him both being an opportunity and a vulnerability for the Liberal campaign. You know, Horwath is on point. She's at 23 on preferred Premier, and the party's at 24. And even for Doug Ford, you know, he's ahead of Horwath by about 7 points, in the same way that the Conservatives are ahead of the other opposition parties by about 7 points. So Del Duca, the one to watch, because I think people are going to be kicking tires. Do they want to vote Liberal, or do they want to stick with the Conservatives who have the lead and who won the last provincial election?
Now, Nick, it's likely, of course, that the parties, of course, are doing their own research and have probably numbers that line up pretty similarly to yours. How do you think that is going to sort of play out in the first week of the campaign here? You've been doing this a long time. You've watched how politicians, unfold their campaigns. We've already seen a lot of talk about affordability from all three parties, really. But how do you think these numbers are going to play out in the first week of the campaign in terms of what the leaders do and where they go?
Watch where the leaders go specifically, because it's all about geography. You know, for the Conservatives, they have basically about a 12-point advantage outside of the GTA. So that's kind of the Conservative bedrock of support. But in the GTA, it's actually very close between the Conservatives and the Liberals. So for both the Liberals and the New Democrats, they have to reignite and pick up support in the GTA. If they cannot do that, mathematically, it is almost impossible for them to challenge Doug Ford and the Progressive Conservatives. So watch the New Democrats and the Liberal go heavy into the GTA, while Ford tries to hold on what he has in order to keep the political advantage.
Well, speaking of that, Nick, on the right in the federal campaign, there was a sense that perhaps the federal Conservative Party maybe lost to Maxime Bernier's PPC party. In Ontario, we have a couple of new parties that would appear to be right of the provincial Conservative Party. We got the Ontario Party and the New Blue Party of Ontario. They're not really registering much in your polling here. Do you see them as potentially being much of a factor?
Well, they could be a factor in specific campaigns if it's close between the Conservatives and the Liberals. But right now, the Ontario Party, I think we have it around 2.8%, and the New Blue maybe 1%. So, together, they're only a handful of percentage points. But there could be some ridings, especially in kind of small-town Ontario, where if they siphon off 5% of the vote, it could allow the Liberals, for example, to pop up. But the big question is, are people going to be focused on Doug Ford? Will this election be a referendum on Doug Ford? Or will it perhaps be a referendum on Del Duca or Andrea Horwath, and whether people like or dislike either one of those opposition alternatives.
Right, and when you speak about, a referendum, that of course is made up of everybody taking a look at this, but you've also sort of split your numbers and shown us the differences between not only regions of the province, but also men and women, and how the support for the different leaders breaks down there too, and there's an interesting, contrast.
Absolutely. We basically have a gender war in Ontario, or a gender divide. If you happen to be male in the province of Ontario, you are probably, it's almost like a 1 chance in 2 that you're probably supporting the Conservatives. I think the male support is at around 47%, and for the Progressive Conservatives, the Liberals are back 20 points among male voters. But when you look at women voters, what we see is that the Liberals are ahead at around 34%, followed by the New Democrats and the Conservatives at around 29 and 27 respectively. So it doesn't look like men and women are agreeing on who they'd like to see win this election right now when we look at the CP24 CTV Nanos polling.
We'll see how those numbers crystallize over the next few weeks and see where the numbers go. Nick Nanos joining us this morning from Nanos Research. Appreciate the time and the insights, Nick. Thanks so much.